Jose Young's here with MMAfighting.com and the UFC 241 dress wrap. We're still inside the Honda Center, and standing next to me, they were on the preview show. They're back for the post show. Kacper and Denis of Submission Radio. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Yeah, sorry I have to put up with us again.
Yeah,
but thank you. You were so nice. You smelled so nice. We couldn't resist. Invading again.
You told me that, and I got real self-conscious about it.
It's good to know that we can buy a spot on the show for $20. I thought it was going to be $50, but the monetization money wasn't going to stretch that far for this trip. So I'm happy that you gave us Cedil Young's Era Gym.
Well, we'll get to the bottom of that after this, but we're going to start at the top of the card of UFC 241, of course. Well, the main event, Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic. Stipe Miocic got revenge, walked away with the belt. Were you surprised at how it played out? Because in watching an octagon side, Daniel Cormier was finding a lot of success, and Stipe Miocic started to go to the body. Daniel Cormier kind of curled up, and he got finished in a very violent fashion. What did you make of the finishing sequence, how the fight played out as a whole, and were you impressed with what Stipe Miocic showed at the end?
Oh, you got to be impressed with that. I mean, he adjusted game plan mid-fight. I was saying just before that, you know, when you see these guys up close, they're two heavyweights, and you're sitting cage side, they're slinging leather. You can hear those shots colliding. You can see the blood, you know, flying out of Stipe Miocic's mouth. I think Daniel Cormier, you know, had a tough task ahead of him in general, and I think he lasted for a very long time. He was almost sort of cruising by the end, and then Stipe Miocic kind of took advantage of Daniel Cormier's, I guess, one weakness. He's been hit to the body many times. Anderson Silva did it. Frank Mir did it in Daniel Cormier's UFC debut. John Jones did it with some knees in the first fight. It's kind of been something that's plagued Daniel Cormier for a long time. And for Stipe to sort of adjust mid-fight and capitalize on that and win a fight that, in my opinion, he was losing and really put that exclamation point. I'm an idiot. I was wrong. I thought it was going to be via decision. I mean, the whole night was me being wrong. So it was an incredibly impressive performance by Stipe Miocic.
Now, Denis, I have to ask you this personally. Sure. You said that you didn't think Stipe Miocic.
That I said this?
You did. You said Stipe Miocic doesn't even deserve the immediate rematch. What do you have to say now?
Listen, sometimes Jose Youngs tells you to say things on the show to be controversial, and this time it didn't work out. Now, listen, I was wrong with it. Did he deserve the rematch? I don't know, but he got the job done. That's important. I think the key here is this. Kacper said it there, the shot to the body was important, but what was more important and was more impressive was the fact that we saw that championship level heart from Stipe. You've seen guys go down to DC, guys when he defended his light heavyweight title, when things got too hard, they kind of gave him their back and they made sure the fight finished quicker. DC kind of reevaluated after round after round after round. He's like, well, that didn't work out, that didn't work out, that didn't work out, until he found something that did. That's fighting, that's heart, that's something that's very, very rare. So yes, I am wrong. And, you know, maybe Stipe was wrong because he didn't do the body shot earlier, but
so then
we're both right, because he won the fight, and here I am talking about how great he is.
So then to put you on the spot, should he give Daniel Cormier and me a rematch to settle the trilogy?
Absolutely. And he deserves the title shot, all right? Jose? Listen, here's the situation here. I know you're going to ask what you want to see next for Daniel Cormier. I'd like to see this rematch with Stipe over a fight with John Jones, because to me it's interesting to see what happens here. Both guys have a win against each other. There's something on the line here. It's something that could be debated but could be settled at the same time. With John Jones, I feel like John Jones goes in there and really, really puts a beating on Daniel Cormier. I don't know if I want to see that. You know what I mean? Sure. At this point in his career, he's a little bit older. He's got issues with his body. I think the Stipe thing makes sense. I'm not a fan of this Francis Ngannou-Stipe fight, which I guess he kind of deserves, because I know you're going to ask me how everybody deserves everything now every time.
You know all the questions, don't you?
Yeah, so let me just save some time. And what else do you want to ask me?
Well, I'll go to Kacper. What do you have to say?
Costa did a good job.
Yeah, we'll get
Diaz
to that.
did well. Thank you very much. Listen to Submission Radio. All right, let's go, Kacper.
All right, then, Kacper. If you're Stipe Miocic, do you give Daniel Cormier the immediate rematch to finish the trilogy? And what would you like Daniel Cormier to do
honestly,
next?
I would like to see the John Jones fight. I think, first of all, DC needs to go and kind of evaluate his health. That's the most important thing. He needs to decide whether he wants to continue or not. Selfishly, you know, I'm a fan of the guy. I'd love to see him stick around forever and just keep on fighting. But he's got so many other things going, and if health is a risk to him, you know, seeing his children grow up, then, you know, maybe he should walk away. I don't think he should walk away based on tonight's performance. It's a question he has to answer. But I think if you're DC and you look at, all right, where does a win over Stipe get me? He's already got a win over Stipe. He doesn't have a win over John Jones. So he was saying to us about, legacy is important for him in the lead up to this fight. Well, what could improve your legacy than a win over John Jones, the white whale, the guy that you've never been able to beat, the guy that in some ways has plagued him, responsible for, him at his most emotional on TV. So I think from a legacy standpoint, the motivation's there. And let's say Daniel Cormier is sticking around in the sport just for paychecks, right? Because he wants to secure his children and his family's future. Well, where's the money? I don't think that it's in the Stipe fight. I think, once again, it's in the John Jones fight. You get a competitive matchup. It's intriguing. People want to see. People get behind that story. Can he do it? He's the underdog. But also, there's a rivalry there. There's a genuine hatred that I think has simmered. But it's gonna spike up. John Jones already tweeting out at Daniel Cormier. There's already fuel there. I don't know if John Jones is doing it because he knows that this is probably going to happen. Also, Daniel Cormier came in so light. I don't know if in the back of his mind he feels like I'm going to light heavyweight sooner than later. But I feel like if he wants to keep fighting, he's kind of done the road work already in a sense and gotten himself closer to light heavyweight than he probably has been in a long time.
And are you a betting man, Jose?
Not even.
Have you put down a couple of dollars here and there, left and right?
Not even.
Well, let me explain it to you like this. With a guy like Stipe, and this is exactly what Kacper said, he looks at making a certain amount of money, and there's a certain amount of risk. With a guy like John Jones, he's looking to make more money if he wins, and a great legacy if he wins. But he hurts his legacy if he loses, because this time you lose to John Jones, well, 3 times or twice because there's some controversy, and you make less money because you don't get your win bonus. So where are you at? Do you take the Stipe fight, a fight that you probably have a better chance of winning, and walk out on a win? Or do you risk a lot more to gain a lot more? That's a big question. What would you do, Jose?
Well, if I'm Daniel Cormier or Stipe Miocic, I do the trilogy. Both men, they brought up, they are competitive. They hate losing. I know Daniel Cormier just wants that win. Like Stipe Miocic said, the belt didn't matter. He wanted to beat Daniel Cormier. I feel like Daniel Cormier feels the same way. He just wants to beat Stipe Miocic and finish the trilogy right off in itself.
And I like the fact that he didn't announce it tonight.
I agree.
And I think that's a great lesson for everybody. This guy does everything right when it comes to this kind of stuff. He's like, I want to speak to my family, I want to speak to my coaches, I want to figure this out. I don't want to make a decision right now while I'm, feeling like this and I'm emotional. This is something people can take away from.
Well, we could talk about the main event for an entire post show, but we're going to move right on to the co-main event, which a lot of people think was the actual main. We're going to start with Kacper. Mostly because I know you want a lot of time, so we're going to give you the final say. How about that performance by Nate Diaz? 30-27 against Anthony Pettis. I know a lot of people picked Nate to win, but I don't know if they picked it to be that dominant. What did you make of his performance? In my opinion, one of the most impressive wins of his career.
Once again, I'm an idiot and I'm wrong. I thought Anthony Pettis was going to have the better moments. I think it served as a reminder at just how good Nate Diaz is at drowning guys, at putting the pressure on. And I feel like in the past he was better at doing that in 5-round fights. And for a guy who had a 3-year layoff, I mean, look, Anthony Pettis had his moments in the first round and in the earlier parts of the second round, but Nate Diaz really brought it. And there were a few times where it looked like he was close to finishing Anthony Pettis. I think also as a fight overall, it delivered in every facet. We saw these guys stand up. We saw clinch battles. We saw the ground game. That was something that people were fascinated about. Anthony Pettis' jiu-jitsu, him off his back. We saw that. We saw Nate Diaz sort of, almost choking him out, or at least getting him in some close rear naked choke attempts. The guillotine that Anthony Pettis has finished so many people with.
Not just people, but high-level black belts he finishes them with.
And he had Nate Diaz in there. I thought that was, I don't know, for me, that was almost like a mark-out moment, like, oh my God, what's going to happen if for Nate Diaz to pop out? He's like the Undertaker. I think this fight delivered in general, and I think Nate Diaz in general just looked like a completely different welterweight. We saw in the past a younger Nate Diaz, a little bit more body fat, a lot less muscle, and he was just getting ragdolled by guys like Rory McDonald and the likes, Dong Hyun Kim, and I think he just looked really, really good tonight.
All right, Dennis, the floor is yours. Well, what did you make of Nate Diaz's performance?
Well, I'm an idiot as well, of course. Let's just get it all out of the way. Do you want one before every time you speak about a fight, or do you want one just to cover all the bases for the rest of the...
I just assume you think that whenever you speak.
Oh, okay, fantastic. It's always good doing the MMA Hour post-show. Let me tell you something, man. I think that Anthony Pettis is going to watch this fight back, and he's going to be a bit hard on himself, and he's going to be like, oh man, I just wish that the moment didn't sort of take over me, and I wish that I made the most of this opportunity. You know what I mean? And you go back through through Sherdog and you go back through websites and you look at records and fights where if this guy would have won, maybe like things would have changed for him. I think even though Anthony Pettis has lost so many big fights in his career, I think this is probably the biggest sort of, would you say, like sting in a lot of ways? I feel like he was like on resurgence, and now he's missing out on this Jorge Masvidal fight. He's in this welterweight division. Where does he go now? He just lost against the guy that came back from a long layoff, for Nate Diaz, and the division's so stacked with everything. So he's back to that kind of we don't know what's going to happen with him next thing. He definitely had the opportunity to go out there, implement his game plan, but just Nate Diaz was too damn good. We were talking to Richard Perez in the back. It was a Submission Radio exclusive, of course, and Richard Perez said that before, Nate Diaz, he would be a slow starter. Well, in this camp, they were working on the fact that he's got to get going straight away. I feel like we're looking at a Nate Diaz that's a lot better. After this layoff, he's had his child, even though he says he fathers half of California. I don't believe it. I actually think he's changed. I don't know about you guys. This media week, he's like chilled out, laughing, having a good time. During the fight, no middle fingers, no Stockton slaps. And he's not pointing the finger and laughing at anybody. This is a kind of Nate Diaz 2.0 who's kind of, there was some questions in the post-fight press conference that maybe he would have been annoyed at. Someone called him Nick, so he's chilled out, he's happy, he's at a different point in his career, and I think he looks better than ever, man.
Now, before I ask you what he should do next, I think the answer is he has to fight Jorge Masvidal next. He himself said, to exact verbatim, he said, I have the baddest motherfucker in the world belt, and I want to defend it against Jorge Masvidal. Yeah. Dana White liked it. Jorge Masvidal was back here, said he's down to fight Nate Diaz. He was octagon side. He was laughing the whole time. Is that the fight to make for both of these men?
I think there's no losers here. Jorge kind of is like in this tough position where like you could give him the title shot, but does he deserve it more than Colby Covington? Probably not. We could sit here and debate who would draw more money, which one is a bigger fight, but I think you got to give it to Colby. So what does Masvidal do with all this momentum? He's not really interested in fighting Leon Edwards. That sucks for Leon Edwards because I think technically he does deserve that fight. In comes Nate Diaz. It's a perfect, I guess, filler fight for Jorge Masvidal. Just keep him busy. He wants it. Nate Diaz wants it. And I think the fans want it. And even from a stylistic standpoint, it's exciting. It's fun. Like you said, these guys sort of had that interaction. That made for great camera as well. There's no losers here, man. Oh, and also, sorry, Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz, they both speak a lot about how they want to get paid. And of course, exactly what I was gonna say. Fights, I don't want to say that they don't warrant that pay, but obviously it's all an investment. If you're going to say, look, I want a lot of money, and the UFC are like, well, what is this fight going to draw? You can certainly say that Nate Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal will technically draw a lot of money. I would say the only sort of question is, where does this fall on a card? Because I would love for this to be a 5-round fight.
I think this is one of the few fights that could headline a pay-per-view and not have a title at the time. Because Jorge Masvidal said if he doesn't get a fat paycheck, there's going to be fucking problems. Those are his words.
Wouldn't that be crazy? Because I know that Dana's kind of said in the past that like, oh, you can't main event a pay-per-view if there's no title on the line.
I think Nate Diaz has done it before O'Connor.
There's a precedent there, right? And imagine if Jorge Masvidal was another guy. Just crazy to see a veteran in the game who for a long time was just kind of, going along with his career. Imagine if him and Nate main evented a pay-per-view in, 2019 or 2020.
So what does Nate Diaz do next? What does Anthony Pettis do next? I know we've talked about a lot of Jorge Masvidal. Is there any other name that you would like to see him take?
Look, obviously Conor McGregor's always around, and we're always going to be talking about that fight with him. It's just tough because I feel like that fight's there regardless. Like whatever happens to both guys, I feel like this is the UFC's last kind of big paycheck before both guys ride off into the sunset. So I absolutely agree. I think the Jorge Masvidal fight is the fight to do it. Look, titles are an illusion for people to be important, right? Sure. Am I right? Yeah. It's all just entertainment, and titles are a way to get guys over and make sure that, people care about them. You don't need to do that with these guys. This is bigger than, I know Kacper said it's like a side thing, but in a lot of ways, like this was the biggest fight they can make in the welterweight division. If you think about it, this is huge. And if they pass up this opportunity to do it and one guy goes on and loses in the meantime and they don't make that fight happen, that's almost criminal. You know what I mean? Like you don't get to see these guys at this time because they don't want to pay a guy what he deserves. I think that's ridiculous. So I hope they open up the checkbook, they pay the money. I think ESPN's sort of on them as well because they want to make sure that the big fights are happening. Covington can figure out with Usman, and then after that, maybe the winner can fight there or wherever it happens. The badass title, though, I want to see that title be made.
Well, Nate Diaz says, I want a physical baddest motherfucker on the planet belt. And
I feel like that's a Henry Cejudo thing as well. Maybe Henry
don't give Henry another belt to go after. Come on. But we're going to go down to the third fight from the top, and a fight you guys had a lot of stake in. Well, your country did, of course. Paulo Costa beat Yoel Romero. Now, before we actually get into what's next for the winner, how did you score that fight?
Oh, yeah, I was saying before that I was shocked at the crowd reaction. I mean, sitting there cage side and really getting a chance to sort of seeing those punches land. I know that Yoel Romero kind of blocked a lot of those shots, but I think Costa did more damage. He put the pressure on him constantly. I think without a doubt, Costa won that fight. No, there's no controversy in my mind whatsoever.
Dennis, your thoughts on how did you score Paulo Costa versus Yoel Romero?
No, absolutely. Just like Kacper, I had Costa winning. Listen, the thing with this is that Costa, I don't know what okay, I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. Let's get that out of the way. I was wrong. But Costa, we knew physically, this guy's a specimen. We knew that he brings the action. But mentally, I was so impressed with the fact that he wasn't drawn into the Yoel Romero mind games that have plagued most fighters that he's fought. I mean, Yoel was on the cusp of getting back into the fight more than people realize. If you watch that fight closely, he starts gaining momentum. He sticks out the tongue. He's pretending that he's, tired or whatever. This guy's a great actor, by the way. And then he's getting some momentum, but then Costa's still there. And then Costa lands a shot, and then Costa gets the momentum, and he's back in trouble. And that's what I felt was happening over and over and over. And by the way, we have to give Yoel Romero credit because at his age, he was still able to go in there, last the fight. A lot of people would have taken a way out. He hung out till the end and was able to survive all the way. But I mean, Paulo Costa, he is everything that he said he was going to be. Muscles on Brussels, muscles on muscles. This guy has said that this thing's personal, and he's going to go out there and he's going to put a beating on Yoel Romero. He did just that. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Now, I'm not saying that he's perfect. There's a lot of holes that he needs to fix up. He's got to be careful. But if what he says is true, and he was like not seeing anything in one eye, and he's still out there making it happen. And obviously, there's also cardio issues. And if he has a 5-round fight with a guy like Robert Whittaker or something like that, he's going to have to figure out this muscle thing. We may see a less muscly Paulo Costa. Less muscles on muscles, or however he would say it.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because when I asked in our live chat during the press conference, I go, how did you guys score the fight for the fans? A lot of it was either 1-2 to Paulo Costa or 2-3 to Yoel Romero. That seems like the second round was a big deciding factor. But if you watch that fight, Romero came back very strong in that third round. What would have happened if there were 2 more rounds for Paulo Costa to work? But he obviously probably would have restructured his game plan and not just come out guns blazing. But moving on, he said he wanted to go to Melbourne. Mm-hmm. You guys are going to be there. I won't, but MMA Fight and Casey will be there, of course.
Mainly because we live there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little easier than flying all the way to Anaheim. But what do you make of his chances against the winner of Robert Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya?
I mean, I think based on this performance and his past performances, I think the first 2 rounds are incredibly dangerous for anyone fighting Paulo Costa. I think when you look at guys like Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya, they're really, really intelligent fighters. They're not just very skilled technically. They're just very smart. They have good fight IQ. Yeah, like Dennis mentioned, I think the cardio is going to be a big factor for Paulo Costa. I feel like he's still quite young in his MMA career, and I feel like he's still sort of evolving. And I think tonight was kind of a learning experience. My 2 biggest takeaways from Paulo Costa: A, that guy's chin is unbelievable. The shots that he took from Yoel Romero, not only to survive, but just to eat them and keep walking as if they were nothing. That was amazing. And I guess for him to be able to sort of win a decision, but just the cardio, I think that's going to be a massive factor. It's something that he's going to have to taper, and I think that if you look at the improvements that he's made, he really did use this time away from the sport when he had his suspension and wasn't getting fights to sort of do better things. And I think when fighters are sort of young in their career, they can make those quick adjustments. I don't know. We'll see. He might have to trim down some of that muscle for the title fight.
And I'll present you with a different sort of question.
That is your real name.
It is.
I say a press pass.
We're not
Mark Stevens. There you go.
Mark Stevens. Yeah. I'm not going to ask you who do you think will win between Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya because that's still a few months away. If you're Paulo, all right. if you are the fans, who do you want to watch Paulo Costa? Because there is history with Israel Adesanya. He tweeted a juice monkey emoji. Yeah. So if you're a fan, who do you want to see him fight?
Dude, there's no doubt about it. This Israel Adesanya Paulo Costa fight is just ridiculous, and not only because of the fact that both guys are going to be talking trash and the lead up is going to be absolutely brutal and exciting and fresh and new, but the fact that both of these guys are new guys in the division, young guys that people haven't really seen too many times, it's going to be fresh to see these guys together. I'm really excited about the middleweight division, man. How good is it? I mean, come on, it's awesome. And you got Robert Whittaker in the mix there.
It's been more stacked, and we have Jared Cannonier versus Hermanson coming up.
Calvin Gastelum's hanging around. Things are happening there. So Oh man, so much stuff happening. But the thing is, I'm very interested because I think both guys could beat Paulo Costa. But what I'm interested in is what will Israel Adesanya look like as well in that fight. Costa has his face out and he cops a lot of shots. Adesanya is an incredible striker, and if people haven't seen his highlight reel from his kickboxing career, the guy's like incredible, right? His coach, Eugene Berryman, is a scientist in the gym, an absolute scientist who predicts where fighters are going to be years from now. Guys actually have timelines. Dan Hooker, Israel Adesanya, this is where we're going to be in a couple of years. They brought feinting into MMA. There wasn't much feinting into MMA. So when you have a guy like Paulo Costa running at Israel Adesanya, I want to see what Israel Adesanya is going to be able to do, and can he cop the shots that he needs to cop to make it to the later rounds. Whereas with Robert Whittaker, I still think it's an exciting fight, but it's a different kind of fight. I think Israel versus Costa is fireworks, and Israel is not going to be wanting to run away from a Paulo Costa. He's going to want to make a statement as well. Don't forget about this. Israel is a guy that makes statements. He's a guy with style inside the octagon and outside the octagon. Dude, that fight, can you imagine? And the thing is, Israel Adesanya, they want to do a big stadium show in New Zealand, right? The Kiwis, the Maoris, all of our listeners, you know, they want to see the UFC go over there and have a massive show. Can you imagine Paulo Costa versus Israel Adesanya in New Zealand? Finally, Jose Youngs can go to another country outside. You know, he only takes trips to Anaheim, but maybe we can figure something out.
You know, California's not another country.
What do you mean?
Yeah, right.
Everything's so different here, and
so then Kacper.
I'll just quickly say, like, I would be equally as excited for this Robert Whittaker fight.
I was going to say, sell me on the Whittaker now.
Well, Robert Whittaker obviously had the 2 wars against Yoel Romero, and we just saw the guy that beat Yoel Romero. So imagine how tough of a test that would be for Robert Whittaker. And I feel like Robert Whittaker has been criminally underrated and sort of overlooked his entire career. I've been even guilty of it. The amount of times that I picked against him in fights, and he just keeps proving people wrong. He just keeps finding ways to win. So I'd be very curious how a fight like that goes. And I think Robert Whittaker, you know, he's had that championship experience. As a fighter, he's so much more mature than Paulo Costa. So I think it's a fascinating matchup. And Robert Whittaker, he just finds ways to win against these guys that just keep forward like Terminators, like Yoel Romero and like a Paulo Costa.
Yeah, and how crazy would it be if you think about it like this? And I like this Whittaker thing as well. I'm a flip-flopper, you know how it is. But
someone call you an idiot.
Yeah, I don't know who that person is. Apparently we're never going on their post-show again. But I was going to say that the deal with this as well, his legacy, right? And all joking aside, like, he has fought some of the hardest guys in the division, true or not? And if you add Paulo Costa to that in a lot of ways, and if you're Robert Whittaker and you look at your next bout, over the last few years, you're like, oh my God, what do I need to do? Because remember Anderson Silva, when he defended his title sometimes, it would just be like, you know, not against the best, you know, there were guys there that maybe weren't Paulo Costa or Yoel Romero twice. So, and the great thing is, you know, Robert Whittaker wants a quick turnaround fight as well. So both of those would be really good. But he won't fight in Brazil. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think that's going to happen attention. But we could talk about this card for hours and hours and hours. Anything else on this prelim or undercard that really stood out to you? We had a lot of impressive performances, not a lot of finishes, though.
Look, there was a lot of moments where sort of, you know, we were in the back doing scrums, but one of the things that I got to really sort of soak in was Derek Brunson's gutsy performance. We were speaking about how a lot is on the line for Derek Brunson heading into UFC 241, just in terms of a guy who at one point was looked at as a big player in the division, someone who could maybe sort of work his way up to title contention, and it just never really happened. And I think a lot of things were on the line here, and you could see that in the way he fought. You know, he fought a very game Ian Heinisch, who, you know, hurt him very, very early in the fight, and he just never stopped coming. So I was very impressed with his performance, and I guess his heart in this fight.
Dennis, same question. Anything stand out to you from the undercard?
Sadiq Youssef was incredible. He was in a great position on the main card to make an impression. He did that. The guy has an incredible story. We spoke about some of the controversies, or the adversity that he's been through. The guy, you go back in his record not too long ago, he's fighting outside of the UFC. Now he's winning on the main card of one of the biggest pay-per-views of all time, Jose Youngs. Not of all time, but probably of the year in this country, California. It's a country, right? And just quickly as well, everybody talking about having kids and how kids are making them better. You know, I'm 30 as well, and I've been with my girlfriend for 8 years. It's kind of starting to motivate me to have a kid. Can you imagine what Submission Radio would be like? I feel like Nate Diaz, I've been looking after all these kids that aren't mine. Maybe it's time for
this preview show has taken quite the
2.0 Jose Youngs.
Well, I'll say Cameron Worthy's, I think, is the biggest star out of this prelim. He took the fight on 4 days' notice and knocked out Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith was supposed to fight Clay Collard. Before that, he was supposed to fight John Medesa. He was the biggest betting favorite before he got the Cameron Worthy, and he got knocked out. First professional loss. So Cameron Worthy said, I don't care about championship belts. I just want to get paid. And then he started talking about parallel dimensions and interdimensional travel.
I like the honesty.
And
He's an interesting guy.
He is an interesting guy. But for Jose Youngs, Kacper, Dennis. You can find all of their excellent content at Submission Radio. You guys got a lot of interviews this week, huh?
Yeah, we're just media sluts, I guess. That's the correct term.
I guess so.
Thank you so much, Jose. You guys absolutely killing it. SB Nation for life, brother.
Yeah, well, for Jose, that's Kacper, that's Dennis. We're out.